My name is Ibrahim Yunis. I'm a resident of Kibera and a Nubian who was born here 66 years ago. I lived in two villages with my two grandmothers who are now deceased. The first village is Makina village where we are, and the other village where I lived in the 60s was Lomle village, which is now called Ayani Estate. I am a Nubian elder. I am the coordinator of the Kibera Nubian Elders Network, which is the umbrella body for Nubian elders from the 13 Nubian villages in Kibera sub-county. Prior to this, I used to work for the public service, that is in the government of Kenya, for 36 years in various capacities, and I retired in 2018. I was a human resource manager at the time of retirement.
So you said there are 13 villages, Nubian villages.
Yes.
In the area.
In the area.
Okay.
If I may give you a brief history of the Kibera land, Kibera Nubian land. As you are aware, the Nubians came to Kenya around 1876, and they were brought here by the British colonial administration to come and assist them to manage the colony in East Africa. The Nubians traced their ancestry from the Sudan and Egypt. So when they came here, they were conscripted into the King's African Rifles by the British Imperial East Africa Company, which by then was administering this Kenya, Uganda, and on behalf of the British colonial government. So the Nubians were conscripted to join the King's African Rifles. And they fought in the First and Second World War on behalf of the British. After the war effort, after the First World War, the Nubians were settled here in Kibera. And the word Kibera is actually derived from the Nubi language, which means a forest. So after the war effort in 1918, the British settled the Nubian soldiers in Kibera here. In fact, Kibera was declared a military reserve in 1918, and it was gazetted in the colonial gazette, which is equivalent to the Kenya Gazette, as a settlement area for the Nubian ex-soldiers who served in the King's African Rifle and their families. They were allocated 4,197.9 acres. This land stretches from, the present-day Ngong Road, all the way to Mbagathi Road, Langata Road. You come to Langata Road, you bypass the cemetery, and you leave out the women's prison. It comes all the way through that road and links up with the War Memorial Cemetery. You know where the War Memorial Cemetery?
No.
Along Ngong Road. So all this land in between is the land that the Nubians were allocated by the British administration for services rendered. It was like a compensation. So there were about 355 Nubian soldiers at that time who retired from the army. And they were issued with some documentation to show the ownership. This document is properly known as a Shamba Pass. The word Shamba means farm in Kiswahili. So each soldier who retired was given some acreage of land, ranging from about 8 acres, some even got 20 acres, depending on your seniority in the army and the period of service. So they settled with their families on this land, and as you can see, 4,000 acres is a lot of land. and only for about 359 people. So these people were scattered. So during the settlement, these villages, I told you the 13 villages were created. Some were settled here in Makina, some were just across here called Utoi, some were in Sarangombe at a place called Impala, some were in Langata, some were in Lainshaba, some at Ayani. So these 13 villages are the villages which were formed by the Nubian settlements. And for information, people need to understand that the Nubi community is actually a group of tribes that were brought together by the British. And this group of tribes are tribes that you can even today find in South Sudan. For example, you find the Dinka, you find the Nuer, you find the Bari, you find Aluru, you find the Shuluk, Nyangwara, Zande, and others. In South Sudan, there are 63 ethnic communities, and the Nubians were recruited from those communities. So when they came to Kenya, they came together to form one community known as Nubi. So the sub-tribes now became like clans. That's why you'll find these 13 villages are called by the names of the clans, like Kambimuru. Kambimuru was for the Muru tribe. Kambilendu was for the Lendu tribe. Kambialuru was for the Aluru tribe. That's why some of the Nubian villages are named according to clans. This land, if I may continue to explain, when the British allocated this land to the Nubian community, it was conditional. At some point, the British made it clear to the Nubians that we are allocating you this land only for you, the soldiers, but you cannot transfer it to your offsprings. And therefore, the British told the Nubians, you see, this land is only for you, the Askari, not for your offsprings. You cannot transfer it as a form of inheritance. Therefore, we are going to make arrangements to settle you elsewhere. So this arrangement was captured in the Carter Commission. See, there was a Carter Land Commission that was established by the British administration around 1928 to look into the land problems of the natives, including the Nubians. So in the Carter Land Report, there is a chapter that addresses the Nubian land question. In that report, which is still available in the archives, Carter recommended that should the British colonial administration wish to use the Nubian land for development or any other purpose, they should relocate them and compensate them. Unfortunately, the implementation of the Carter recommendations was not very smoothly done. So what the British did, they started building estates in Kibera in the early 1960s. And they started building estates. The first estate they built is at the place called Karanja now. Karanja, there are three. The estate, which is now popularly known as Karanja Estate, was the first to be built by the British, basically for the Nubians community, as part of the resettlement program that they had in mind for the Nubians.
Can I just ask, why would the British give land to the Nubians and right after that relocate them?
Because they told the Nubians, you know, you are in town, and the future, the land where you are, Kibera, would form part of the Nairobi city in the future. You see, the British were looking ahead. They're saying this land is going to be part, this town is going to expand this way. So you need to find for you alternative land because you are going to be displaced, whether you like it or not. Unfortunately now, the Nubians, those our great-grandfathers, the soldiers, and the British were not in a clear understanding on how to go about that. because the Nubian elders were not materialistic people. They were deeply religious Muslims, and they had a unique attitude towards land. Due to their religious and cultural inclinations, they had the view that land belongs to God, and nobody can go with land anywhere. That if you die, you leave land here. Even those who will come will still leave land here. So they never took seriously the issue of land. So the land that they were allocated, even the estate, let me give you the example of the estate they were given. When the British came up with the idea of the estate, Karanja Road, some of the Wazes rejected. They said, no, we don't want. So when the estate was built, a large number of Nubians declined to take up land there, amid houses at Karanja, because of the cultural, and some were convinced by their relatives and friends not to take. So only a few took the houses at Karanja. Because most of the Nubians did not take up that offer, so the British opened up the Karanja estate to outsiders. Now anyone, you find, that's why you find there are some non-Nubians there, because the Nubians declined to take up the offer. So Karanja is the first estate the British built. And also the Nubians, some of them reasoned that, when they were living in large farms, somebody was staying in a farm of about 10 acres, another one 20, was now going to be given a 40 by 80 plot with a house on mortgage. The houses were not free, it was on mortgage, of a lease mortgage for 20 years. Some did not have the money, some saw that as a poor deal, so they declined it. In addition to the group that did not value the whole arrangement due to cultural and religious beliefs. So that was the first estate that was built. It was built into 3 phases. There is phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Then subsequently, now, after independence now, this is what the British did. Then, sometime in 1948, the British, as you are aware, the Kisumu Railway that was built from Mombasa to Kisumu up to the Uganda Railway, it's properly known as the Uganda Railway. This railway used to pass through the museum, the routing. It was diverted in 1948 to pass through Kibera. This railway line now you see was diverted here in 1948. So it had to pass through some of the Nubian villages and caused some displacement. So in 1948, when the displacement took place, the British built some houses at the end of Karanja, PWD. I don't think you know. The place where you're telling me just ahead, where you are to have this interview. The British built some houses there for the Nubians. Those houses were called railways, because now the railway was going to pass there. So at Kambimuru, basically, Darajani, a place called Darajani, yeah? The Nubians were displaced, several families. And they were told, now, what's going to happen? We are going to relocate you to those houses. But the community rejected. This is 1948. They rejected that arrangement because they said, first of all, the houses were very small. They likened those houses to houses for horses. They said, no. We are too civilized to stay in this kind of houses. And secondly, the conditions placed was that they were to live there as tenants. They will not own the land. So a dispute arose, and the Nubians even went to court. They sued the British government in court over the demolitions that took place as a result of the diversion of the railway line. Some won the case, some relocated, some were compensated and relocated. So this is what has happened around the railway. Then this is what happened during the colonial administration period. Then when we come to 1963, I originally told you the land was about 4,000. By the time 1963 was approaching, the land remaining was about 2,000. The British had already taken 2,000 through this kind of schemes, housing schemes. Some even they took to build the civil service quarters. You see, Woodley was part of the Nubian land, was used to build staff quarters for European civil servants. They even took the golf course. You know, this golf course was part of Nubian land. It was taken. All the land along Gong Road going to Impala, where they play rugby, all the way to the meteorological. They took those land now, basically because the Nubians were gullible. You know, they were, somebody's given 20 acres, but he leaves the 20 acres, he moves to a neighboring village to stay with relatives. So he leaves that land unattended. And so when it is encroached, it's not a very big deal to them. So that's why the British took. So as at the time of independence, 1963, only 2,000 acres was remaining. Now, what happened after independence? The new government continued having off part of the Nubian land, building estates, allocating it as they deemed appropriate. Remember, when this land was originally allocated to the Nubians through a gazette notice, the Crown Land Act was amended to reflect that situation. Now, after independence, just before independence, the British themselves amended the Crown Land to bring the land they allocated to the Nubians under Crown Land. So because the land has been brought under Crown Land, they now had the authority to do as they wished. Okay. Earlier on, I referred to the Catalan Commission report that proposed some form of compensation and relocation. As the time the British left, the implementation of the Catalan Commission report was incomplete. So the Kenya government continued with building estates in Kibera through the National Housing Corporation. So now they moved to Ayani Estate. They built, the Nubians were displaced from Ayani. An estate was built there at Toi, which is just across here. Toi is a tragic case because for the Nubians of Toi, they were displaced, but no houses were built. Instead, the land was alienated and allocated to other people. Adjacent to Toi's Fort Jesus, an estate was built on Nubian land. Another estate was built now at a place called Olympic. Then in Langata, the Nubians of Langata were also displaced, and housing estates were built there. Gay Estate, Southlands, all those estates were built on Nubian land. The ones at Langata were not compensated at all. So what happens when they are displaced? They all come to Kibera here to Makina. They come to stay with the relatives at Lindi, then Shaba. So from a large settlement, 13 villages, the Nubians were displaced systematically until now they occupy a very small piece of land known as 288. Now, after the British left, The Nubians continued agitating now for their land, which I told you by then was remaining 2,000 acres in 1963. So in 1963, there was a member of parliament here who later became the vice president of Kenya, a gentleman who is now deceased called Joseph Murumbi. Joseph Murumbi was the MP for Langata. He was
At the county level or national level?
national level. He was the MP for this area.
Yes, okay.
This constituency, political constituency known as Langata, that comprised Kibera, Graine, some parts of Woodley, was a political constituency, and he was the MP here in 1963. And he promised that he was going to look into the issue of land. But unfortunately, when he became vice president in 1966, he became vice president, and then there was a fallout between him and the establishment then, and he had to resign. So the Nubians were left in abeyance until 1970, when the Nubians got a Nubi MP, Honorable Yunis, who is late now. He raised the issue of the Nubian land in Parliament in 1970. By then now, 1,200 acres only were remaining. The Parliament of Kenya in 1970 passed a resolution to the effect that the government should allocate the Nubian community title deeds for the remaining 1,200 acres of land. And now the minister and the technocrats in the ministry were directed to effect it. They did not effect it because of political dynamics in the country. At that time, in Nairobi area, there was an organization that was formed known as GEMA. GEMA used to control all the constituencies in Nairobi except two: Langata and Parklands. Yunis Ali was the MP for Langata, and then there was Kivuitu, the former chair of the Electoral Commission, was the MP for Parklands. But all the rest were GEMA members. So they influenced the executive not to implement land for the Nubis in Kibera, because they were the administrators, they were the political people, all the ministers were from that community, because they had an interest here. So the Nubians lost a huge chunk of their land as a result of that machinations. But the Hansard report shows that it was approved. Then the community started agitation for the land until in the year 2003, they had to file a case in the court.
And you were always here. You were experiencing all this.
Yes, my father, who was the MP at some point, Yunis Ali. So I could see every move they were making. I was a young boy growing up in the struggle.
Yeah.
And I was fully conversant with what has happened. So from 1970 up to now, when it came to the year 2003, there were a lot of political issues here. Now rural-urban migration, the profile of Kibera changed. Now there were people who were coming here to come and find employment in Nairobi. So they would come to Kibera, which was the easiest place to get cheap housing.
And how were the Nubians, or how do you say, Nubians?
Yes.
Reacting to new people incoming from the rural areas to the urban? Were they accommodating them? Were they welcoming them?
The Nubian by nature are very accommodative people. Very accommodative and welcoming. Very friendly people. They have no problem with them. Even now, the Nubis have no problem with anyone being here. Unfortunately now, the people who came here took advantage of the Nubians and took over most of the land. Even if you do a survey now in Kibera, the Nubians now own 288 acres of land here.
So they were saying it's still my land, but you can live here if you want.
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
they allow them to live here. And you know now, due to the strategic location of this land, its close proximity to Nairobi and the industrial area, so the Nubians started putting up rental houses, cheap houses, so people came as tenants, and soon they outnumbered them. And then what complicated the matter for the Nubians was that the provincial administration, now due to the fact that the Nubians had no land ownership documents since independence, 70s and 80s, 90s, up to just recently, government officers used to allocate land to whomever they wished. Some Nubians protest, but they had no ability.
They didn't go to court.
Eventually they went to court in the year 2003.
Yes. Okay.
They went to the local courts here, High Court, in 2003 to raise the issue of the land ownership and citizenship status. Unfortunately, at that time, the judicial system in Kenya was not operating well. So they had to withdraw the case and filed it at the African Peoples and Human Rights Court in the year 2006. And then the case was heard there.
Human rights means United Nations.
No, African Union Court.
African.
Yeah. So the Nubians took their case to the African Union Court in 2006.
The Human Rights Court.
Yeah, they filed the suit at the African Union Human Rights Court in 2006 and got a favorable ruling on 3 issues. First, on the issue of citizenship, because this was also an issue of contention. The Nubians were having challenges getting citizenship documents like IDs and passports. So the court advised the Kenya government to relax some of the stringent requirements to allow the Nubians get citizenship documents. Number 2, the court advised the Kenya government to recognize Nubian land rights over Kibera. Number 3, the court advised the Kenya government not to effect demolitions against the Nubians. So as a result of that court ruling, the Nubians in 2013 were allocated 288 acres of land. They were given a title by the regime of the former president, the 4th president, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, the retired president, issued a title, and this title covers Makina area, parts of Lingi and Lainshaba.
So smaller than originally.
Smaller than the original.
Okay.
Now, this is where the Nubians, they have a community title, one title for the whole community. Unfortunately, now there are challenges. The Nubians are not in a position to develop the land.
Because there are people on the land.
There are people on the land, and the community also doesn't have the capacity. The government partnered with the community in the year 2023. The new administration that came in 2022 entered into a partnership with the Nubian community through the Kibera Nubian Community Land Trust to assist the community develop the land. In fact, a task force was formed comprising of Nubian community members and government officials to develop a master plan and develop strategies on how to develop the land. The task force did its job, but unfortunately, due to wrangling within the community, there were different functions within the community, wrangling over control of the process. So some people went to court and stopped the process, and the court case is still pending. So the Nubians are now still in abeyance. No development can take place until the court case is resolved. In the meantime, there's a lot of encroachment on the land. Land cartels are building permanent houses on Nubian land. without permission of the community. God knows how they get authority from government agencies to build on somebody's land without authority. This is also a perplexing question. Somebody will come to your land without your authority, build a permanent house and get away with it. So slowly, the land is being eaten away by encroachers. The time when the Nubians will be ready to develop their land, they will have to evict these people first. And we fear that there could be litigation. So we are now having internal issues to resolve among the community.
And you yourself, you still have land here?
Yes, my family land is still here.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Except now you see, because the family has become so big. Imagine my great-great-grandfather. The descendants are about 2,000 people. And the land he had was just like, by the time he was alive, the land was about, let's say, 1 acre. Four households. I'm the 4th generation. There is the 5th, 6th, 7th. We cannot fit in all there. So that's why some of us have had to go to other places to look for our own accommodation. Some Nubians have moved away, are staying in areas like Ruai, in a place like Mala, Joska, Kamulu. Some like us are staying in Adriva, some are in Kitengela, some are in Gong, some are in Kisaju. Because now you see the land is small and the population of Nubians is increasing. Like in my own family, we are 14 children. We cannot fit in there. So now it's survival for the fittest. So as a result of that, Kibera has remained a slum up to today. There is poor sanitation, no proper infrastructure, poor housing, high levels of poverty, a lot of social ills taking place, drug abuse, alcoholism, crime rate is high. All these challenges as a result of being in an informal settlement. But if this place was to be developed, I can assure you all these problems will go. Even the environmental issues you see around. People are using pit latrines. There are some areas where I'm sure you have heard there are flying toilets. Yes. So there's a lot of pollution.
But so the people that now live here, they come from rural areas from before.
Yes.
And so how did the Nubian community react when they were starting to be outnumbered, when there were like more and more people coming in? Did they try to stop the inflow? Or?
No, the Nubians did not try to stop. But now what happened is that when it comes to political campaigns, for example, the Nubians are not now able to win any seats, even the local seats, because they are highly outnumbered. These people have come, and then unfortunately in the year 1990, when Kenya moved from a single party to pluralism, to a democracy or multi-party, now the political culture in the country is now ethnic mobilization. The Nubians are constitute now 30% of the population of Kibera. At independence, the Nubians were about 50%. Now they are dropped to 30% due to this migration. The Nubians did not at any time attempt to evict or show disapproval for these people, except there is an incident that happened in the year 2001. In fact, there are two incidents, 1995 and 2001. There were ethnic conflicts here. pitting the Nubians and other communities. These conflicts were political in nature. They were perpetrated by political actors within the area who wanted domination. In fact, the conflict of the year 2001 was so serious that the Nubians were almost being evicted from Kibera. Their houses were torched in certain villages, and large Nubian families had to take refuge in the mosque at Makina. But the Nubians were on the defensive. The Nubians were not the ones on the offensive.
What was the origin of the conflict?
The origin of the conflict, we were told that there was a dispute between landlords and tenants on the issue of rent payments. Some politicians came up with the idea, in order to win support, they told the landlords to reduce rent by 50%. And you know, majority of the Nubians' livelihood, they are landlords, dependent on rent. And then the politicians went on to even make some inciting statements to the effect that this land belongs to the government. Nobody owns any land. How do you charge people rent and you don't own the land? And the Nubians consider this as their ancestral land. So there was incitement. The tenants, with other external forces, took advantage of those political statements to take ownership of the houses by force. And it caused resistance. The landlords were not only Nubians, because there were other communities like the Kikuyu, who were also landlords, the Kamba and others. Up to now, there are certain villages in Kibera where the people lost their houses to tenants because of those inciting political statements. Up to today, those two incidents. In 1995, there were also ethnic conflicts, which were brought about by interests by politicians. So now, the Nubians are disadvantaged when it comes to politics, because the politicians who are holding positions now at the MCA level, ward level, at the parliamentary level and other levels are not Nubians. And at the local level, they are not sympathetic to the community, because they are dependent on their communities who have come from the rural areas. So voting here is done on tribal basis. So now, the politicians and their supporters look down upon the Nubians. And this is likely to cause a problem in the future. Even, I recall very well, during the time when we were doing public participation for the development of the master plan I mentioned to you in 2023, some of these politicians were not very cooperative towards the Nubian project, because they wanted the land for their supporters. Yeah. As I speak right now, some of the supporters of these politicians have even gone to court to challenge the title allocated to the Nubians for 288. There's a case pending.
Is this the reason why the whole process was stopped, as you were mentioning before?
No, there are two court cases.
Yes.
There are court cases filed by Nubians to stop the development. And there is a court case filed by other non-Nubians, yeah, with the tacit support of their political godfathers to challenge the title issued to the Nubians. They want the title to be cancelled because they are now laying a claim over the land. Whereas these people came here as tenants in the 70s, 80s. The Nubians have been here since 1917. And in Kenya, as I told you earlier, the Nubians came in 1876.
So there's a part that is missing in my understanding. So the British they allotted the land
Yes.
to the Nubians
Yes.
after the First World War.
Yes.
But the Nubians were already here, no? They were already living here.
No. Let me clarify. When the Nubians came here in 1876, they reached Nairobi 1890, and because they were soldiers, and the capital of Nairobi was in Machakos. When they came initially, they were taken to Machakos, and because they came to be on duty, they were deployed in various areas. Not Kibera. So they were in Machakos. They even went to Fort Hall. They were in various military barracks. I can give you Langata Barracks. Langata Barracks. The Nubians were in Langata Barracks. And then, there is this Department of Defense headquarters. Some Nubians were deployed there, but their families were staying in Kelelesho and Kabete. And then at Mbagathi here, Kenyatta National Hospital, there was a military camp called Bula Camp. Nubians were deployed there. So they only came to Kibera on retirement from the army as a settlement place. But they had been in Kenya from 1876. The first Nubian settlement in Kenya was in Eldama Ravine, not even Nairobi. There are also Nubians in a place called Mumias in Kakamega County. They were there in 1884. So the Nubians, when they came to Kenya, they were deployed in various towns. Some were in Mazeras. In Mazeras, they settled in a place there in Mazeras, which is in Kilifi, upon retirement. So Nubis came to Kibera in 1917 for settlement, but they had been in Kenya since 1876. I hope it's clear?
It's all clear, it's all clear.
Yeah.
It's all clear. Yes. So have you really the impression that the government does not really know what to do now with this issue of land, no?
Yes. You see, now the government is now confused.
Yes.
They entered a partnership with the community. They want to help them.
Yeah.
But some members of the community, they have gone to court to stop the process. What can the government do now is to wait for the court process. The court process now has been ongoing now for the 3 years. Meanwhile, in the outskirts of Kibera, I'm sure you can see in Woodley, some developments are coming up. If you go down, there's some affordable housing being built. Soweto sites, isn't it? Yes, yes. All around Kibera, developments are going on, but for the Nubians, nothing is happening because of internal conflict among leaders. So the leaders have let down the Nubians.
So the community has been offered some affordable housing or some construction projects, and there were no agreement within the community to go ahead.
What happened was that the partnership I talked about that the government entered into in 2023 was that the government was going to assist the Nubian to develop a master plan for a halal city. You know, the Nubians blueprint for development of Kibera is a city called Halal City, modeled on Islamic principles, which will have commercial, we have residential and other amenities. So a draft master plan and strategies for development were developed in a report by the task force. And even the task force report has not been handed over because it was stopped by a court. So now the Nubians are in a dilemma because whereas majority of the community members supported the task force process and the proposed development, some few leaders, just 3 or 4 people, for personal reasons, which are not actually, which are detrimental to the whole community,
You said at the beginning it was 30 villages. So back then,
It was
30 villages.
13 villages.
13.
Yes.
Yeah, 13. But would you? What is the estimation of the Nubian community today in numbers?
In numbers.
Yes.
In Kibera now, there are about 60,000 Nubians. Out of the population of Kibera is close to around 180,000 people. They're saying now to 50. Now, I'm talking the figures, is now Nubians around 60,000. 30% of the population of Kibera is now Nubian. 30%, as opposed to 50% at independence. And the number is going down because many Nubians are now moving out of Kibera.
And what is the governance process? So you told me that there were all these conflicts between families.
Yes.
Is there a governance process with an assembly, with I don't know, with college of elderly who discuss these issues?
Yes. We have first of all the land is vested in a trust. The Nubian community land, the 288, is vested in a trust. This trust is known as Kibera Nubian Community Land Trust. Within the Nubian community, we have various leadership structures. We have a council of elders. And we have also a council of clergy known as Bawaki. Yeah? We have the clergy and we have the elders.
Clergy is the young.
The
clergy, what is it?
The clergy are religious leaders.
Religious.
Yeah, religious leaders. We have a council of religious leaders known as Bawaki, and we have a council of elders. Unfortunately now, the council of elders is one of the protagonists in the dispute. So they are a party to the court case. So now they cannot mediate among themselves. So now there is a mediation process that is being done through court-annexed process. This mediation process has been going on, this is the third year, since 2023. Of late we have heard that there are some meetings going on, but no tangible results has come out. So the community governance system that you are talking about has failed, because the group that should have presided over are now part of the group that is in court.
Mm-hmm. Are you a member?
No, I'm not a member. Okay. I'm not a member of the Council of Elders, but I'm a member of another group of elders. Okay. There are two groups here. There is the National Council and there is the Village Council. I'm in the Village Council. Okay. The Village Council are not party to any of these issues. Okay. It is the National Council that is party to the court case.
And what is the role of youth in all this? Because our campaign is about youth, about the marginalized youth who do not have access to decision making.
In fact, this you have asked a very important question. In the year 2009, there was a census done by the Nubian community, and then I'm also privy to the census report of 2019, which shows that in the Nubian community, 80% of the population are youth. 18 to 35, 80%. Women constitute 51% of the Nubi community. But the voice of the youth is not felt within the community, yet they are the majority. Why is that so? Because of cultural beliefs. You know, in a cultural beliefs, we respect elders. Yeah, we try to avoid conflict with them, even when they are wrong. So now, a youth like Adam, for example, who is better educated, exposed, well informed, is unlikely to have an impact in the Nubian community with those cultural attitudes. I I respect huyu mzee. How do I navigate the situation? Yet, the beneficiaries of any future development is the youth. The wazees I'm telling you that who are currently in place are not well read like these ones. These are people who are primary school dropouts. They are not graduates. They are not attuned to the world of today. And this is the reason why they even oppose development. Because they are not exposed. They don't have the wherewithal to steer the ship in the prevailing circumstances. We are in a very volatile world where things are changing. The Nubians are being left behind because of leadership. Me, I always tell the youth, it is your time. Because I used to give them, I often give them talks and tell them, I remind them what Frank Fanon said. Every generation must define its mission, fulfill it, or betray it. This is their generation. We are living in a global world. We are in an urban center where there is, it is cosmopolitan. There are different communities, races, religions, living side by side. Not like in my time when we were growing up as Nubians alone here. Any development, by the way, most of the donors we talked to supported the Nubian project wholesomely.
Donors? Who are they?
Donors.
Yeah, who?
They were donors, eh?
Who were they?
They were local donors.
Okay, yes.
Yeah? Local entrepreneurs were willing to come and invest in this land. And you know what the main motivation was? The main motivation, they're saying, your land already has people on it. And that is a big plus. Because the land already has people, any investments we put will thrive. But do these wazees of ours understand those dynamics? That this land is basically a commercial area. The Nubians stand to gain more financially because we were going to copy the model of Dubai. We are going to lease land to investors for 40, 50, 60 years. The sad story is now we have outstanding property tax of 100 million which we cannot pay.
You have still rents coming in?
No. We have, on individual basis people are getting it, but now the land now is not generating any income for the community. Yet the community has to pay property tax rates. It has accumulated to over 100 million now.
So the government says it belongs to you when it's in their own interest, when you have to pay taxes.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the law of the land. In Kenya, even if you own land, you have to pay property tax.
Yes.
Because of conflicts, lack of proper management systems in place, we are not generating even a single cent on the land. And rates is accumulating. We are still fighting over who should steer what. Rates are accumulating. There's encroachment of the land. The young generation are just bystanders, hoping that things will get better. Things cannot get better unless action is taken to resolve the issues.
Related to our work in Nairobi this week,
yes.
We have talked to the European Union.
Yes.
Because they are big donors in Kenya.
Yes.
But not only them.
Yes.
So one of the results that came out of our research is that the European Union does not have any projects ongoing in Kibera.
Yes.
Despite they're having like massive problems.
Yes.
Sanitation, housing.
Yes.
And so I was a bit surprised because they're projects everywhere,
Yeah.
but not in Kibera where the needs are the most like, no.
True.
Yeah, and is it because of the community issues as well?
Because of poor leadership and governance.
Yeah.
Poor leadership and governance. If you don't have proper institutions, you don't have proper leaders, you are unlikely to tap into these opportunities offered by European Union and others, because you don't have the right people to steer the process.
And this would be the National Council of Nubians who would be taking the decisions.
The Kibera Nubian Community Land Trust is the body that has been mandated to manage the land. They are the ones who should be engaging the stakeholders. But they are also handicapped now. You can imagine they are handicapped because even the court has stopped them from performing some of their functions.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in a very precarious situation.
It's very difficult, yes.
Yes.
It's much more complicated than I thought.
Yes, it is.
I was just thinking it was no problem of the outside, you know?
No.
But it's also from the inside.
Yes. Yeah. There's an African proverb that says, the enemy outside cannot hurt you unless there is an enemy within. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
The issue like of capacity building, like it's really important for different organizations to be able to handle the different challenges which comes there. I mean, I think
Yes.
that's one of the biggest issues you're facing here.
Yes.
Yeah, we need mediation. We need mediation training.
Yes. So that's why
Conflict resolution.
in my organization, in our work plan for 2026, we have a program called capacity building. We have purposed to train Nubian community groups on leadership and governance, because this is the missing link. We have lowered the bar of leadership in the Nubian community to the extent that people who are unsuitable to hold positions are now in positions making decisions that are detrimental to the community. But if we embark on leadership and governance training, I'm a governance professional. If we embark on that one, we believe the organizations will be better managed and they will make the right decisions for the people. This is what we have purposed amongst other programs.
And what is your relationship with the President Office of the Minorities, Marginalized Minorities Unit?
In fact, I am a representative of the community working with that office.
Dr. Graine?
The secretary is called Lodea Lowoi, the secretary for minorities. I am the liaison person for the Nubis of Nairobi. Liaison person with that office on any engagements pertaining to issues to do with the Nubian community as a minority and marginalized community. I'm the liaison person. And we have a team of about 5 colleagues who work with that office. So we are the link. In fact, last year, in February, the secretary, Mr. Lowoi, Honorable Lowoi, and his team of 30 officers came to Kibera, Makina Mosque, and they had a fruitful engagement with the community on the challenges the Nubi community face as a minority and marginalized community. And these challenges, you know them. First of all, there is the challenge of citizenship. In as much as now we are Nubians as citizens of Kenya, we now get the documentation. There is an aspect called recognition. The Nubi as a community are striving to be recognized as an ethnic community of Kenya, because the government of Kenya maintains a list of tribes.
And the Nubians are not part of it.
The Nubians have not been in that list.
The issue of the code she was talking about.
Yes, the issue of the court. Now, recently, around October, there was a petition in the Senate, and the Nairobi senator asked a question on the issue of the Nubian code. And the CS for Interior, Murkomen, he said that the Nubians have been awarded code number 50. And when he was asked to explain how, when the information would be communicated to the Nubians, he scattered through it. Because whereas he says they have been given code number 50, that information has not been officially communicated to the community. The community are expecting a gazette notice declaring the Nubians as the 50th tribe of Kenya. Because
Code means you're the tribe.
a tribal code.
Yes, yes.
A tribal code is significant because it is used in the registration of persons. When you go for ID card, the first criteria they check is whether your community is in the code, has a code. If your community has a code, then the process is smooth sailing for you. If you don't have a code, you are being subjected to some special due diligence process known as vetting.
Okay. Yeah.
And now, employment in the public service is pegged on codes, because if you go to the Public Service Commission portal, employment portal, the tribes, when you are applying for a job, you have to mention your community.
Okay.
If your community is not there, it means it has not been coded. You are now being classified as others.
And so you have less chances to get.
Yes, you have less chances of getting the job.
Right.
Yes.
And Dr. Christina mentioned that there would be a bill about coding new minorities.
No, what happened recently, there were two very important developments. First, a bill was passed. A bill was developed. A bill was developed on ethnic minorities and marginalized communities of Kenya, which is said to be tabled before the National Assembly.
That's what she was saying, that they worked on the policy framework.
The policy has already been approved. And in that policy, the procedure issues, all the issues that challenge these communities has been mentioned. All the issues that the minorities face are captured very well in the policy and also in the bill. Among these issues, there's a process now for gaining a code. Prior to that, the process for getting a code was not known. There's now a process which is open and transparent. But prior to this, it was at the discretion of the government department, and nobody could know or understand which criteria is used. The bill also addresses the issue of marginalization. For example, it addresses the issue of representation, the one I talked to you about, political representation. The bill proposed, the policy proposes that certain laws should be amended to remove the lacuna that was being used to deny minority and marginalized communities nomination to parliament and to the county assemblies. We have laws, yes, but they are gray areas which are being exploited by political parties. We have the issue of employment in the public service, which we mentioned about the issue of codes. You see now, when they say that employment, the national values and principles of governance talks of inclusivity and protection of minorities. But if there is no law to clearly define how this can be implemented, then you know it's just a pipe dream. A Nubi will present themselves, for example, for the interview of a chief here in Kibera, and will not be considered, despite the fact that Kibera is the ancestral home for the Nubians. Because they will use other criteria. But now the policy is going to put a percentage of jobs that should go to the minority communities. It will put either 20%, because we recommended that 20% of all public service jobs should be restricted to the minorities, so that the minorities now compete among themselves, like in Kibera.
How many tribes codes are considered as minorities? You mentioned like 50 tribes.
There are now 59 tribes
59.
in Kenya
Yeah.
are considered as minority. and marginalized.
So 59 tribes will get 20% of the jobs.
Yes, restricted to them.
Right.
Yes. Just like you remember, we had the gender rule whereby 1/3 of the positions should be restricted to female. So the policy is proposing something similar for the minority and marginalized. Yeah. Amongst other interventions, there are very many other interventions that have been in the policy, which, if fully implemented, will actually go a long way in addressing some of these challenges.
To ask you, like, how was Kibera during your time as a teen? The environment, the trees, and all that.
Growing up in Kibera in the 60s and 70s, Kibera was still basically forested. It was green. Yeah, we used to hunt for birds. Hyenas used to roam around the place. People had nice gardens. It used to rain almost throughout the year. The climate was cool, fresh. We used to drink waters from rainwater. We used to go to rivers. We used to have clean rivers. We used to go to the Nairobi Dam. The water was blue. There was some activities going on there. We used to accompany our parents on weekends to go and wash by the river. Waters were clean. There was no piped water in most places, but people used to go and fetch water from the rivers, which people used to use. The pollution, the contamination that exists today never used to be there. It was a nice environment, very nice.
And when did the floods or the flooding situation start to appear?
Systematically, the climate of Kibera has been changing due to the ongoing developments. You see now, once the estates, constructions were coming up, forests were being cleared. That affected the ecosystem of Kibera. The wild animals that were there are no longer there. The birds, we used to see rare species of birds. So the settlements interfered with the flora and fauna, and also because now rural urban migration, people are coming and plant structures. The Nubis had standards of housing they used to live on. Even if it was mud thatched, it was well prepared. And houses were built in strategic positions. They used to have large fields and compounds. They used to have farms for farming and for grazing. All that was interrupted by the settlements, by people coming in. And that is what affected the climate of Kibera. Kibera now is very hot. It is very hot now. If you compare Kibera with Karen, the leafy side, Kibera was like that. But look at Kibera now. I remember when we were young, we used to have to heat ourselves with jikos.
What is jikos?
Like stoves.
Stoves. It was very cold. Almost 9 months in a year. Very cold. Extremely cold. It would rain the whole day from morning to evening. But now things have changed. So now the settlements that were built across the riverline, because of overpopulation, people have gone even close to rivers.
It wasn't the case before.
It was not the case. The Nubians were very cultured people. They would never build beyond the next to rivers. Nubians had standards of buildings, and their houses were placed in strategic locations. Right now, here, Sometimes, recently there were some fires around. Even for the vehicles to firefighting brigade to get through is not possible. So this is what has brought the situation. Riparian land. Riparian land that the former president tried to address not only involved people coming close, even industries and buildings were built close to rivers, and some of them were releasing waste. In some areas, because there is no drainage system, human waste was being released to the rivers. And there's an NGO called Shofco here, which you are aware. They used to go and collect that water to do some tests. This water along that river.
The Gong River.
Yes, this river here. And it really revealed that most of the diseases in Kibera are waterborne due to the poor sanitation and contamination. Yeah.
Okay. But just a question on the rain season. So you told me that before there used to be rain all year long when it was cold.
Yes.
But have you seen now the rainy season becoming more intense all of a sudden?
No, it is not. It is reduced now.
It's reduced.
Yes. The rainy season has reduced. Even if the rain season comes, it will not last for a month and it will be over. Because now the forests. But look at a place like Karen or some places of Ngong with the forests. You see the plenty of rain that takes place there. The rains. Sometimes it's raining there and it's not raining here.
So it's more of an issue of drought scarcity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ecosystem has been interfered with completely.
So the problems of the floodings is more the houses and settlements that are too close to the river.
Yes.
And because it's too cramped here.
Yes.
Okay.
Poor planning. Now, within the 288, how can there be any planning if the issue of development has not been resolved? People go and build anywhere now.
We were seeing it two days ago. We went close to the dam and people are
Very
on
close
where
there.
there's water.
And then you find the politicians supporting them and saying, no, don't evict these people. There was a year, I think, was it 2023 or 2024? There were serious floods in Kenya.
2024.
It was 2024. Serious floods that went for almost a month, isn't it?
Yes.
So many deaths, people lost their lives, even here. In Kibera, about 20 people lost their lives here because of that.
Yeah, we were basing our project on that.
Yes.
Because of 2024 and
Yes.
like the casualties.
Yeah. It was so serious. And that was because of climate change dynamics.
Yes.
Yeah. Which was basically arising from the developments that has taken place. You see now, we considered that when developing the master plan for Kibera. We proposed that in the proposed Nubian estate, because we proposed that there will be a Nubian estate named after the 13 Nubian villages, and trees will be planted there.
Yeah.
Houses will not be storied building like for the ones being done for affordable housing. Nubians had selected some very nice mansionettes, and this was going to be done on a 50 acre of land. All the Nubians will be accommodated because the census recorded that the Nubians that needed housing, who are in the register of members, were about 8,000. 8,000 people will be accommodated in 50 acres with the trees like in the past.
And the trees will restore the soil
Yes.
quality.
Yes.